Hello and welcome to another Unity C# tutorial. In this one we're going to be taking a look at lists, which is another C# collection type. So let's open Unity and dive right in. If you're like me and love everything to do with gaming, game development and new technologies, then check out my channel. I've got dozens of videos on how to create your own games and the latest in tech. And if you like what you see, why not consider a subscription? Thanks very much and enjoy the video. So lists are actually really similar to arrays in the fact that they store multiple values of the same data type in a single variable. And the benefit of a list is that it's much easier to use that data in the list, so you can easily add, remove, or update elements. However, the elements aren't stored sequentially, which then leads to a higher performance cost when compared to arrays. So let's have a look at the basic syntax of the list. A list type variable needs to meet the following requirements. It needs to have the list keyword, its element type inside the left and right arrow characters, and a unique name. The new keyword to initialize the list in memory, with the list keyword and element type between the arrow characters. And to finish off, a pair of parentheses capped off by a semicolon. And it's worth noting that the list can always be modified, so there's no need to specify how many elements it will eventually hold when created. So in our project, I'm going to go to my scripts folder. I'm going to create a new C# script. I'm going to call this list example. And I'm going to open that up in Visual Studio. Okay, so let's have a look at making a list. So the first thing we're going to do is remove my start and update methods, because it just makes this is going to make this a little bit easier to read. And then I'm going to write out the declaration for my list. So to do this, we're going to put our access modifier, which is going to be public. This means it's accessible by all classes, and I can type the keyword list and use the arrow key. I can put my element type, and I'm going to make my type string, and the name of this list is going to be the wish list. And to finish off, we're going to put equals new list string, and then you finish off with the parentheses at the end and a semicolon. And if we were to go ahead and save this and then jump back into the inspector, you'll see here we've got our wish list showing up in our script, which was added as a component to an empty game object in the scene. I can go ahead and I could say, I could type in 5 here, and then I could add in some elements into my list. So let's say, for example, in my wish list, I wanted a Lambo, and let's say a Rolex, and a mansion, and my own private jet, and oh yeah, let's forget happiness. Boring. Right, okay. This would be a perfectly good way to add in items to our list. So that's one way of initializing our wish list and setting it all up. But just like arrays, you can also initialize the list by adding the variable declarations in between the pair of curly braces. So let's go ahead and remove this for a second. Let's copy this part. That's just commenting it out. I'm just going to duplicate it below. And then after I've put my parentheses, instead of a semicolon, you would put your open and close braces. So in between our curly braces, we would then add in our strings. So we could say Lambo, and because we're doing it in code here, we're going to need to put our strings in between the speech marks, the quotation marks just here, and then separate each one by a comma. The Lambo, Rolex, etc. And then finish off with our semicolon. So that is another way of declaring the list in code. So just like arrays, elements inside our list are 0 indexed, which means they start from 0, so 0, 1, 2, etc. And these can also be accessed using the subscript operator, which, if you remember, was our 2 square braces. That's a subscript operator. So let's test this out. So we can, in our start method, we could say debug.log, and let's open up our parentheses, and we'll put wish list, and we'll get the element at index 0, and then finish off with a semicolon. And then save. So let's go ahead and we'll run this. If it hit play, we should see a Lambo, and there we go. So it's accessed the first element in our list, which coincidentally is 0, and it's displayed it in the console with our debug.log. So I'm going to go ahead and remove this one here. Now we've seen how we can add them in, and I'll uncomment my first one. Make it all a bit neat. You can also get some other information from the list. So other than just displaying the element at index 0 in our list, We can get some other information as well. So I'm going to use the $sign, and then I'm going to open my speech brackets. And then I'm going to say we're going to put here a curly brace, and I'm going to put wishlist.count. This is going to return the amount of items we have in our list. Items in our list. Let's go ahead and see that in action. So there are 5 items in our list. We've got some empty spaces. We've given it the size of 5. So the index 2, 3, and 4, we don't have any items. But if we were to go here and just put 2 and then run it, we see there are 2 items in our list. So just like arrays, lists can be accessed and modified with the subscript operator, which is a square brackets, so we can change the value at a certain index. But it's worth knowing that the list class has a variety of methods that also extend its functionality, such as adding, inserting, and removing elements. So let's say we wanted to add in an element to our list. We could say wish list, because we want to get the hold of the list first. And we put the dot, and then you can see here all the things we can do with the list. Tons. And we're going to say add, because we want to add something to our list. Because we have a list of strings, we're going to add a string and finish off with a semicolon. And save that there. So once we run this, we've already set up, we've initialized our variable list with a couple of items, just the Lambo and Rolex, but we're going to add one in our start method, and then we're going to show how many items are in our list. So I can go ahead and click on the play button. It says there are 3 items in our list, and you can see here Mustang has been added as an element. This adds it to the end of the list, but what if we wanted to add it to maybe in between index 0 and 1? So in between the, let's have a look. Well, so that's going to be in between the Lambo and the Rolex. We want to insert another item into our wish list. We can do that as well. We can go wishlist.insert, and then you want to open up your parenthesis, and we're going to give it the index we want it to go to. So 0 is our first index. We don't want it to go there. We want it to go after that. So we're going to put a 1 for, and then we're going to write mansion. Remember that's a string, so we need our speech marks. 1 too many there. Let's go ahead and test that out. Go back into Unity and hit play. You can see here it's added our Mustang, and then it's also added in our element position 1, and it's put in the mansion there. So this is some really cool functionality that you just can't get with arrays. So when we're inserting this at element 1, if that index or element is already occupied, what will happen is all the elements in the list have their index increased by 1. So what was 1 will now become 2. So everything kind of shifts up. And we can remove things from the list, and that's just as easy. We can go wish list, because that's the list we want to use. .remove. And then we've got some options for removing. We can remove, if we know what the item is we want to remove, we can use that string. So let's say we want to remove the Mustang. Go ahead and save that. Let's jump back to Unity. So I'll add it, and then it'll take it away. It will happen really quickly. You can see Mustang isn't in the list because we added it, and then we removed that specific string from the list. Or you can do a remove at, and then we pass it a specific index. So let's say we want to remove the item index 0, and then save, and you should see that Lambo disappears from the list. There we go. So let's add in a couple of things to our list. Can't remember what we've got so far. We've got a Lambo and a Rolex on our wish list, and then a Mustang. Let's put in our mansion. We should probably put in happiness. We all know money buys happiness. Happiness. Close enough. So we're going to add some items to our list. And another cool feature of lists is the ability to sort them. So it's going to sort this string. You can put it in your wish list, because this is the list we want to sort, and then go dot, and then put sort, and then finish off with a pair of parentheses and then the semicolon. So what's going to happen here is it's going to add all these items to our wish list, and then it's going to sort them. And you'll see it's going to sort them into alphabetical order. So we've got happiness, Lambo, mansion, Mustang, Rolex, all sorted into alphabetical order, which is a really cool feature. Let's copy that list there. We'll make a new one very quickly. But this time it'll type int. We have to change it at the end. Let's say we put cost of items or something, and save that. Go back to our inspector, and let's add some elements into our list this way. Let's say we want 5 And these two aren't linked in any way. The cost and the wish list is two separate things. Let's say we had like 600, 500, 200, 100, and 50. We could also sort that list. So we could say cost dot sort. It's just going to sort it. And then when we run this, you should see that this list sorts itself out from lowest to highest. So if we play, and there we go, 50, 100, 200, 500, 600. You can get a full list of the features by typing in your list and then using the dot, and then you can see everything you can do with your list, and you can see just how much more flexible they can be over arrays. So I personally tend to use lists more than I do arrays, purely for the fact that if I need to make them bigger or smaller during runtime than I can do, and if I want to remove items from a data collection, then lists are definitely the way to go. But test them both out and see which works best in your situation. Well, that's it. That concludes this video on arrays. Hopefully you found it useful and you've learned something. And if you did, I'll really appreciate it if you could leave a like on the video, and that really helps support the channel. Next week, we're going to do our last collection type. We're actually going to have a look at dictionaries and learn to see how we can store more than one type of detail in our variable. So that's it from me. I'll see you in the next video.